Good
You
idea.
never know. I do like a good embezzling, a good embezzle.
Everyone does, truly. That's great.
They don't call me Embezzle Knees Scrooge for nothing.
Okay. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to a Candid Conversation with my name is Breezy, and we are finishing off our October interviews on the spookiest day of the year. And I am super excited to be finishing off with another indie horror dev, one that you may have heard of. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. Who are you and what do you do?
Ooh, it is I, the arbiter of 8-bit horror. Except Scott Cawthon, but he's not really in the game anymore. That's right, it's me, Airdorf, coming straight from the Vatican. Just kidding, not approved.
You got the whole spiel down. I love that.
I didn't even practice that. That was improv.
Oh my god,
Take
he's an improv
note, game
master. Holy cow. Wow.
Try to keep up, folks.
The best in the business. Dang. All right, Airdorf, like, what do you do? Why do we care?
Yeah, so I started getting into indie game development around 2016, and in 2017 I released a little game called Faith on itch.io, and now, like 6-7 years later, it's gotten a little bit bigger than I thought it would be at first. And yeah, so Faith, the Unholy Trinity came out last year, almost a year ago in a week. And so I've been enjoying that wild ride, and I do other things like I'll do promotional games for like film companies. So if you played like The Wind and Extraordinary out of my itch library, then that's what those are. Attack of the Murder Hornets, which was a collaboration with Torpal Duke and the filmmakers of that documentary on Discovery Plus. And I have some super secret projects that I'm working on right now that I can't tell anyone about, but probably towards the end of the month. Ooh. And that are keeping me really busy and slightly not sane. It's
I
good
think
to keep
that's
that fire
game
going.
dev. That's just how it is. Like,
Boy, it is. Yep.
I think every game dev that I've talked to on this show has been like, we've touched the subject of like, I'm not okay. Like, I'm just like, we're not okay. Like, we're fine, but we're not okay. Like, things are just coming all at once. And I was like, yeah, that sounds really relatable. So it sounds like you're experiencing the same roller coaster everyone experiences.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Never thought I'd be this busy in my life, but I am very happy that I get to kind of earn a living doing the things that I love, and kind of letting my creativity out there, and that people enjoy it. That's one of the best things about it.
Yeah. So yeah, Faith is massive, obviously. You don't get a lot of people even outside of indie horror that like haven't heard of it. And obviously I wanted to talk about Faith. There are other things that I want to get into, but like let's start with, where did you have any expectation for Faith when you released it initially? Were you just like putting something out in the world and like being like, I hope this goes well? And then like, what happened from there?
Yeah, no, I didn't at all. When I just released it on itch one day, and I think I put a post on the Indie Games Facebook or something, if anyone remembers Facebook. And
wow, you really dated
history.
yourself.
Oh yeah. And I think I just added some screenshots. People were like, oh, that was cool. And I didn't even have a Twitter or anything. I wasn't really advertising. I put a little trailer up on YouTube and started like the YouTube social media account for Airdorf. And I didn't really expect anything to really happen. But before long, some big names in indie games were I think McMullins tweeted about it a while back, or like a little while afterwards, and then some YouTubers started playing it. So the only thing I did that could be called marketing was, I thought that if I could get on like a Let's Play channel for someone who plays like horror games or something, then I could get some eyes on it, and that was relatively low cost. So I just found every like indie horror YouTuber that I could find, and I just found their like business email in their about section, and some of them actually worked, some of them didn't. But yeah, I think the first YouTuber to play it was a guy named Risk Rim, and it was pretty interesting watching someone play it because it's like free QA testing. It's like they find all
Yeah.
the bugs
Yeah.
and stuff, and it just kind of started happening from there. And eventually, like I made it free to play / pay what you want on itch, and that worked out for me because people like free games, and sometimes they're generous enough to throw a little money my way. So before long, I was like able to pay for a cheap date night, and then for me and my wife, and then after a while, we were able to pay for a nice date night.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of when I wanted to start the sequel and like chapter 2 and start working on my social media presence and stuff. And then I found out how dangerously easy it is to make Faith memes, especially once people started figuring out the text-to-speech voices. And I think a lot of the fact that Faith is very like memeable, or it's pretty easy to make content based off of it. Like if you have Microsoft Paint and you have some sort of computer that can run software automatic mouth, then you're good to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that's what I see on Twitter all the time, is like, if you're not posting Faith memes, like other people are posting Faith memes. I'm like, this community is thriving.
especially after the Wendigoon videos. It's like all my recommendations on my Airdorf YouTube channel are just Faith memes, and some of them are really funny. Like,
oh yeah, people are creative.
I think they're really funny. And now we've got people writing music about it, like all the fan art, a few fan games, and I've been approached by a few like movie directors and movie producers about doing a film adaptation.
Wow.
But there's nothing real concrete on that end, but there's been talks with some pretty notable people, so hopefully something comes of it. I want people to enjoy Faith, and I want it to go as far as players will let me. And I've really enjoyed getting the Unholy Trinity out like last year, and then being able to kind of watch the reaction to that. But to answer your question, like I had no idea that this was going to happen to me. Like,
yeah. Was there a moment where you were like, oh shit, this is bigger than I thought it was going to be? Like, I think we're going somewhere.
Yeah. I think IGN did a couple of like listicles where it mentioned Faith as far like for indie games that you might have missed in October 2017, or scariest games of 2017 or 18 or whatever the year was. And yeah, that's when I started being like, holy cow, like maybe people like actually like this game. So yeah, it was around then. And after that, especially with like Jacksepticeye playing it, Markiplier playing it, who's like my hero. He's the first YouTuber I ever subscribed to.
Yeah, mine too, actually.
Yeah. And having him, or like seeing him play my games and actually enjoy them was, it was like a dream come true. I was starstruck, and just overjoyed. And so moments like that will kind of boost your sales and stuff. And then I was in a few bundles, and I like to do interviews like this, just because I really like interacting with like the player base and stuff like that. If you're on YouTube and there's a Faith meme, more than likely I've commented on it, because I don't know, I came from just an indie horror fan to making indie horror games and content, and I never want to kind of forget that I basically started out from nothing. It was just an idea that I didn't even know would work, and here I am now. It's almost like it's not real to me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's like I almost refuse to believe that it's gotten as big as it has. I wouldn't even call it huge or massive, but it is scary when people like recognize me on the street now. Like,
do they really?
Yeah, I went to Unreal Fest last week in New Orleans, and I think one person stopped me because they saw my Airdorf Games t-shirt, and they're like, "Oh, are you Airdorf?" I was like, "Depends. Are you dangerous?" Like.
Yeah, I feel like you are like pretty careful about like not having your face out there. I think your face is out there, but like
absolutely
don't see
the
it
wiki
often.
has the Faith wiki has my full name
and
stuff.
That's
and
what
like where I went to school and stuff. But whatever. Sometimes some of that you can't really help, but
no, it just is what it is.
I've been really cautious because there's some people like like Swery and who else, like Chilla's Art and Puppet Combo and other indie devs that really that do a really good job of separating their two lives, basically. And I sort of tried to do that. Like, I try not to let too much information out there, but it gets out there. And through my day job, there's probably several people who figured it out of who I am and stuff. And so I don't really mind. Nothing really crazy's happened in that regard. Like, I haven't really had interactions with like really crazy fans, so that's good. Of course, I'm knocking on wood. It's probably going to happen at some point.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll keep my fingers crossed for you that like you continue to have a chill time, because I know when people are really excited about things, sometimes they get excited in the wrong direction.
So, absolutely. Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah.
And then there's people like David Szymanski, like an associate of mine through New Blood. David was actually responsible for hooking me up with my first meeting with Dave Oshry, who is the CEO at New Blood, and that was a great decision, was going with them for a publisher.
Yeah, so they found you sometime, I'm assuming, after you started.
Yes.
You released Faith, the original Faith, like the first chapter.
Correct.
Yeah, and then how was that dialogue started, and like?
Yeah, it was 2018 or 2019, I think, right after I finished Faith Chapter 2 and was working on Chapter 3, just real slowly. I didn't really have a pace. And I knew David through a Steam clan. We played a lot of Aliens vs. Predator Classic 2000, which is one of my all-time favorite games.
Such a killer game, yes. Okay.
Yeah, we loved it. We used to play, not competitively, like we were at a competitive level, but we would do like tournaments, and we would get with other clans and have tournaments and stuff.
I had no idea there was a like tournament around that game.
Like, there was like one, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now,
the one.
Nowadays, there's like one like user who's just been playing it forever that's still making like mods and custom levels and stuff, and still posting about it. And every now and then I'll find someone online, because they got the crossplay for Steam and GOG. Yeah. So there's like a bigger chance than ever that you will find someone. It's just that there's not a lot of people playing it anymore.
That's delightful, though.
I love it. I remember the first time I played AVP was horrifying. I think I was like 10 or 12, and it was great. We were me and my best friend were huge fans of Aliens and Predator series, and so we were like, "Oh, it's both of them together! Oh my god!"
What?
Yeah, and we played it all night, and it was great because one of us would navigate with WASD and the other one would shoot with the mouse. So it was like really dysfunctional.
I love that co-op that you made for yourself. Yeah, that's very wholesome.
Yeah, exactly. So I really enjoyed it, and David was my buddy on there, and we eventually took our relationship further and became Facebook friends. Big step.
Wow.
And through the messages, he was like, "Hey, I'm working on this game called Dusk. Would you like to take a look at it? Tell me what you think." I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I got to play. I was playing like a pre alpha, like just a prototype for Dusk's like main mechanics, and the movement and stuff. Like the guys at New Blood, they will spend like months getting the movement like perfect, or rather, they will make sure like the gameplay as far as how the character controls and how fun it is to like do stuff as the character. They'll make sure that is fun and dynamic before they start with before they move on to other stuff. At least I think that's how it is. It seems that way.
You can tell.
But, yeah, and David was like, "Hey, got any feedback?" So I gave him some feedback. I didn't know that Dusk was going to be like the boomer shooter resurrection. Huge. Yeah, and eventually he was like, "Hey, I see that Faith is like kind of like people are starting to notice it on social media and stuff, like on Twitter and YouTube. Have you ever thought of having a publisher?" And in my head, I was going, "No, I don't want a publisher." Because I just finished watching a GDC talk entitled "You Don't Need an Effing Publisher." And so I was all, ready to be like, "No, man, I'm with the people. I'm here in the trenches, like just trying to make it on my own."
Yeah.
And I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm gonna do this all on my own. I don't need some, parasite publisher. Yeah. I'm never gonna be one of those guys. I'm never gonna be one of these big, indie developers. And but he convinced me to have a conversation with Dave. Dave reached out to me on Twitter and was like, "Hey, you want to talk?" And so we talked on Discord, and the first thing he said was, "We love Faith, and we think this could be a really cool game if you publish with us." Something to that effect. But just going off the bat, it was like, "We really love your game," rather than "We think this game can make everyone a lot of money,"
Yeah.
And that's their motto, the "We hate money"
Yes, we
motto.
love you and we hate money or something.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's exactly it. And it was an incredible publishing deal. So through that talk, I heard about all the pitfalls, like, oh, they're going to make you recoup, and they're only going to give you a certain percentage and stuff. And, you're, this and that is going to be like bi-monthly or quarterly and based on performance. No, Dave just like threw a dev fee, offered a dev fee to me to like finish the game. Of course, it took 3 years because I work slow, but, and then the publishing deal was such that it was beneficial to the developer, like in the extreme. Like I've never heard of a publishing deal that works the way that the one that New Blood offered to me. And so I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And so I started getting involved with New Blood, and it's been an awesome ride. I love those guys.
They seem very cool.
Yeah, and such talent. Like freaking Hakita made Ultra Kill, is like Ultra Kill only being like the highest rated FPS game on Steam right now, I believe.
Yeah.
And then Dusk and like Leon Zawada and them making a Medieval. And there's some new projects at New Blood that are just blowing my mind every time I see them, Gloomwood.
Yeah.
And this new one, Fallen Aces. And if I forgot to mention one, I'm sorry, but and of course there's Faith, this like tiny little Atari game, that moves at like a snail's pace. So I felt out of place for a while.
And it's up there with the giants.
Yeah, I felt out of place in that Faith didn't seem like it fit, but I didn't feel out of place because they quickly made me feel very welcome and valued. And towards the end of Faith's development, like I had their QA team at my disposal, and through time zone differences, they were all pretty much available like whenever I needed them. Mm-hmm. And the QA team's just killer. I gotta do a shout out to them. They definitely, I couldn't have gotten Faith out last year when I did without them. So big thank you. And it's been such a positive ride. I just feel so bad that I work so slow. Like,
well, with
Ultra Kill, Hakita like turns out content for that like so quickly.
Yeah.
There'll be like a weekly meeting, and Hakita will just be like, "Yeah, I composed this like giant piece of music."
Oh God.
It's like, golly, what can't you do? But yeah, so much talent that I'm surrounded with. Like Andrew Holschult, Boomer Shooter music extraordinaire. Mm-hmm. Not even Boomer Shooter. He did stuff for Doom Eternal, which is like
amazing,
insane. Yeah. I play Hunt Showdown like several nights a week with him. That's and
awesome.
Dylan Rogers and occasionally Leon Zawada. And so yeah, I made friends, and they've been really great to me. I got to meet a lot of them in person in Dallas for QuakeCon, which was crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah, crazy, like meeting these heroes of mine like in person.
Yeah.
And it was great.
That's awesome. And there were, like you said, it took you 3 years to end up finishing everything. And there were a lot of people that were waiting. What was that?
Yeah.
Did you feel that pressure like every day? Like, how do you survive
of course I did.
3 years?
I had like 50 DMs every day being like, Faith when, Faith when.
Yeah.
And I made this pledge. So after, there was a lot of like, I don't know, there are a lot of like unfortunate incidents with like people getting swatted or streamers and gamers just kind of going off the rails because of mental health issues and stuff. So I was like, man, and maybe this sounds like narcissistic of me, but I was like, maybe if there's just like one person that was their friend, that they could just sit down and talk to, like maybe they wouldn't have, maybe they wouldn't have been pushed that far or whatever, or maybe they would have gotten help on someone's recommendation. So I've always kept my DMs open. It's backfired on me a lot of times, but not to the degree where I have to like close them again.
Yeah.
So I keep them open, but that also meant that about 50 people would DM me on Twitter asking for Faith, and now they don't do that anymore. But although I had someone today ask me why I haven't released the soundtrack for it yet, and I'm like, what do you mean I have? Like,
you're like, you must not be that much of a fan because it's already out there.
Yeah, you must be what we call an Airdorf scrub who just is a fake fan, and so.
I can see why you and Torpil are friends. You guys, you have similar mannerisms from you talking. It's so funny.
So he has such a great personality. I find it rubbing off on me, which is a good thing. So he's probably told you this, but I've known Torpil since probably for about 10 years now.
Oh, wow. I don't know if he's mentioned that.
Yeah. So yeah, we did time in uni together. and struggling through like studio courses and stuff. And he's a little bit younger than me. In fact, I was one of the oldest people in my like graduating class, and I was one of the only ones who was like married. So it was really hard for me to kind of like relate to people. But like Reed specifically, he was like speaking a different language to me, like quoting like memes and like inside jokes and stuff. And I call him my meme dealer because
he truly is.
He's like weeks ahead of the curve as far as like what's popular, and he always has something.
He keeps you young. He keeps me young, and I think we're the same age.
He keeps the meme dopamine rush like coming, like constantly streaming into me and stuff. So that's why I call him my meme dealer. But yeah, Torpal's great. He like lives, eats, breathes, and poops and drinks game design like that.
Yeah,
like he has such a mind for like cool game design ideas and cool mechanics, and like the emotional and affective and like vibe design of his games I think is really, really cool. Like Hand of Doom, I was so impressed with, because it just nailed that vibe, but it also had this kind of full motion video like kind of quirkiness that he's known for.
It was great. And he's the first person to say like, I'm not really a game dev. I'm not like, like he doesn't have any, I don't know if it's belief in himself or something, but he really is like very talented and very smart and good at what he does as far as like game design goes. And I just think that's so like a very telling, like sort of, what is it when you like imposter syndrome, I guess it is. And like, he just doesn't believe it. I'm like, no, dude, you make really cool shit.
Yeah. I think if it doesn't in the next couple of years, I know that something of his is gonna just explode someday.
Yeah.
And more and more people are gonna appreciate the cool work that he does. He's in my Airdorf inner circle because he would come over to my house and play like the latest builds and stuff. Every time I finish a chapter in Faith, I have him and some other close friends of mine come over, and we just do like a playthrough Faith party, and they give me feedback and critiques and stuff. And I value their opinions a lot. That's why I have him over and we sit down and play and stuff. And he has like saved like Faith from like, well, he has spotted like typos and like grammatical issues, because that's what he used to do when we used to work together in the games for entertainment space. He used to do a lot of like scanning spreadsheets for like dialogue, or like setting up dialogue and like interaction trees and stuff. So he always picks out, like 5 minutes after one of my chapters comes out, he'll be like, hey, there's a typo here. Stuff.
You need those people.
But thank you. Oh yeah, seriously. No, he's really sharp when it comes to that. So yeah, I value his opinion a lot, and he's one of my best friends out there. And him and I are actually working on a couple of projects together. And we're going to pitch a pretty big project to a publisher, or we've pitched it. They like it. We're working out details like budget and production schedule. And we hope to be able to start working on it in January, which I really hope is going to happen, because him and I worked together for about a month on Earl's Day Off.
Yes.
And it was awesome. Like, excellent person to work with. He has great ideas. He's really sharp as far as like programming, like mechanics and systems and stuff. So the idea of getting to work with him again really excites me. But yeah, sometimes our humor can be
it's a specific brand, and I love it. Like, it just talking to you, it becomes very apparent that you two are friends. And I think I would have picked up on that, like, regardless of having talked with Torpal before. But yeah, it's wholesome. It's good.
Yeah, so that's my TED Talk on how awesome Torpal is.
I know, it's very wholesome. Speaking of projects that you are working on, I'm sure there's a ton you can't talk about. But I do at least want to bring up one. Or
I think I know which one you're talking about.
You maybe, because this is something I was excited about from somebody who's on TikTok a lot. And has been seeing Miss Molly Moon, I think is her name.
Oh yeah.
I have been seeing her TikToks forever, and you two ended up connecting very like publicly on Twitter, right? You retweeted, I think, something that she did.
It was all I could do because her DMs were closed.
Yeah, which is like, I mean, it worked. I do believe you two are at least in the makings of something. And is there like literally any part of that you can talk about?
Yeah. We're pretty sure we're gonna have a demo out for Halloween. So very soon.
So this is happening soon. When this
Yeah,
video
yeah.
comes out, it'll be like today-ish.
Well, I hope so.
Oh my god. That's so
Yeah.
exciting. What has
So
what has
collaboration
that been like?
between collaboration between me and Jesse Cox and Molly Moon, and
That's right, Jesse. I forgot.
yeah, and Torpal's actually helping with that. I don't know if you knew that.
I don't think I did.
He's
That's
actually
awesome.
helping a lot with that, actually.
That's super cool.
Yeah, he's been helping out with the stuff that I don't really have time to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been slow going, I think, because we all have like different schedules. But yeah, the juices are flowing, and Molly has the makings of a great game designer, because when we were asking for what she had in mind for like the demo, she was like, "Oh, I don't really think this is a good idea, but here it is." And it was like a whole, it was basically a GDD that was formatted like to be perfectly understandable for like every interaction, every dialogue, and everything. And I was astounded by how well organized and just how perfect it was. Like I was like, dang, you could like literally take this and make the game. Like there's very little to ask about. So yeah, she is meshing really well with me and Jesse, and Jesse's been really supportive, and he has some great ideas about like production and stuff. So yeah, it's gonna be this really cool kind of collaboration that I've never really done anything like this before. But as soon as I saw that one TikTok, one of the first like, "Excuse me, sir," like,
Excuse me, sir. Can you walk me home? Thanks.
freaking awesome. As soon as I saw that, I was like, this looks like a game. It should be a game.
Yeah.
And so I figured before long people would start looking at her and trying to adapt it into like a point and click game. So I was like, I got to get on this. So yeah, I just made this kind of public shout out, and it's good that I did that because I started getting people like left and right offering to help out with that. And one of the big ones was Jesse. And Jesse's amazing, huge supporter of mine through his like Scary Game Squad stuff.
Yes.
They'll typically play one of my games at CoxCon, which is really cool. And next week on the 21st, which will be last week when this airs, I'm going to be hanging out with Gerard Khalil for Indieland, and I'm going to be on his charity stream like live.
That is so cool.
We're gonna play Faith together. So
that's again some of those like, I'm gonna call them OG YouTubers from when like
Yeah.
I was younger. Markiplier,
Yeah, G4 and all
Jacksepticeye,
that.
Jesse Cox, yeah, all that stuff. Like amazing to have watched those people, I'm sure. And now they're like, do you want to make a game together? You want to be in my charity stream together? Like I can imagine you are just like on cloud nine with that sort of thing.
Well, I got to meet Gerard at GDC, like in San Francisco in March. We just like rendezvoused in the middle of like a park, and we were just kind of talking and stuff. And while we were talking, like people would like come up and like start listening to us and kind of like look at us weird, like, "Are you who I think you are?" And they'd be
Yeah.
like, "Are you Gerard the Completionist?" And that he is like the coolest guy, like super chill. He just absorbed strangers who wanted to talk to us like into the conversation.
That's awesome.
And yeah, like really cool guy. And yeah, around that time he was like, "Hey, we're gonna do IndieCade again. Do you think you want to come on like in person?" I was like, "Golly, boy howdy, sir, that sounds great." And
he was like, "Don't do that voice on stream."
And yeah, so I was just kind of starstruck. But yeah, it's gonna be cool. I really like the work that he does, like through his charity work and through like the foundation
Yes.
that he does. And so yeah, I would be crazy not to take up that opportunity. So yeah, I'm gonna see him next week. And
That's so cool.
yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to open up like more kind of collaboration and stuff in the indie horror space, because it's a really positive community. You probably already know this.
Yes, that is why I'm in it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people like message me or talk to me and say like they'll say things that I never thought they would say, like your game helped me find God. And I'm like, that wasn't the intention, but I'm happy for you. Like, or they're like, that your game, like Faith pulled me out of a really dark place, and I'm like, I don't know how that did it, but
Yeah.
you're welcome, I guess. Or like, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
But I've learned that a lot of people consume horror media as like a therapeutic thing. It's like a control thing for them. A lot of them were traumatized by things that they can't control, and so
Yeah.
watching someone play and survive and complete some sort of horror narrative It's been kind of cathartic and therapeutic for me, so I imagine it is for other people. Like how people say that, like, like Nakey Jakey, he said that like playing Dark Souls pulled him out of depression.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, absolutely. I did you grow up with horror games, or was this something you got into later? Like you've really settled into the genre.
So horror media was like outlawed at my house, and I love my parents to death. I had a tremendous upbringing, but yeah, my dad was like super against scary movies, and so was my mom, and so I had to basically like sneak horror content in, like on the VHS player in my TV at night, or go to Hastings and pick up some forbidden horror DVDs, and watch them.
Yeah.
Or go over to a friend's house. But yeah, the horror games thing started, I think it was in high school. We went and rented Fatal Frame 1 for the PlayStation 2.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I played it at my girlfriend's house like all night basically, and it was like so cool. And we were really scared and stuff. It was awesome. And I eventually played the sequel, which is, Crimson Butterfly is one of my favorite horror games of all time. I think it's like a masterclass of survival horror design. And it's sort of overshadowed by like Resident Evil 7 and 4 and Silent Hill 2 and but yeah, Fatal Frame 2, getting into that. And then around 2011, which was, I was an adult by then, I'd graduated from high school, and I started playing Markiplier. Well, actually, a friend of mine was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of Slender Man?" I was like, "No, what's that?" And he's like, "Oh, just go on the web or download the game. It's this like crazy game. There's this monster called Slender Man." I was like, "That doesn't sound very scary," but I really liked it. And I think one of the first videos I watched was a video called Bane from Batman Plays Slender Man.
Collect all 8 pages. 8 pages of what? Slenderman's diary? You hear that, Slendy? You're a little preteen girl.
And if it wasn't Markiplier, it was like sounded a lot like him, and that's how I kind of found his channel. And so I played the it was really funny. He's like, Slender Man's like looking at him, he's like, "Oh, I was born in the dark, loaded by it." And yeah, so I started getting into Markiplier. I watched his Amnesia playthrough, and then I watched his endless Slender Clones playthroughs. I was there through FNAF, and which basically stapled Five Nights at Freddy's into the public consciousness for like forever.
Yeah.
And I kind of fell off of viewing because through the whole like mascot horror or FNAF FNAF likes stuff. By then I was working on my own stuff. Yeah. And say what you will about Scott Cawthon, but I love the first 4 or 5 Nights at Freddy's games. Maybe 3 a little less, but like 1, 2, and 4 I think are insane.
Oh yeah.
And there's a reason why they're so popular,
Right.
That's what kind of got me into horror games. And actually watching Markiplier through the years play all those random indie horror games, some really good, some really bad, I started kind of figuring out what his like scare profile was. And this is going to sound really creepy, but there were parts of Faith, Chapter 1, that I designed specifically to scare him with the hopes that someday he would play it and be scared by it. And like 4 or 5 years later, it actually happened, and I got to watch that exact thing happen. And that was just mind-boggling. But I think focusing on like YouTubers and Twitch streamers and stuff, it really kind of filled my brain with this like library of what works and what doesn't. And by the time PT came out on the PlayStation Store, nobody knew it was a demo for Silent Hills. Lord bless and keep it. Screw Konami. And no, PT is my all-time favorite horror game.
It's so good. It is. I could do a whole video essay on PT.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I agree.
And I originally wanted Faith to be a PT, like, with like more high fidelity graphics and just kind of short form. But I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So I was like, what if I went the opposite direction and instead tried to make a horror game with just like super basic graphics, like Atari 2600, ZX Spectrum, somewhere around there. And that's how Faith started out. Actually, Faith started out as a clone of the hunting minigame in the like Apple II version of the Oregon Trail. Except there was something after you, besides like shooting like buffalo and deer and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it all came together. I never thought, I never wanted to be like this big name in horror and stuff, but that's kind of become my wheelhouse now. So I'm going to stick with it. I have a lot of game ideas like written down, like waiting in the wings to start production, probably more than I'll be able to make in my lifetime, which is kind of depressing. But there are non-horror titles in that list, and eventually I'd like to get into it. But yeah, for now I'm going to enjoy riding the horror wave. Like, it's definitely one of my all-time favorite genres to, of media to consume. It's October, so I get to choose the movies that me and my wife watch, and so inevitably I have a list, I have a queue of scary movies that we watch, and so that's what we've been doing.
I love that. And you've made, like you mentioned in the beginning, you've made a couple of games in tandem, if you will, with some studios that have asked you. Like you said, The Wind, Extraordinary. I think Hatching is one of them as well.
Oh yeah, Hatching was the most recent one.
Yeah. So how did this happen? I've seen them. I've played through a couple of them so far, and they are really very cool. Like, it's a very unique thing to have a studio come to you and be like, hey, I really want you to make a neat little game for this.
Well, strap yourself in, because it's a crazy ride, because I was looking for venues to submit Faith to, like a showcase or an expo or a conference or something, and this event called Fantastic Arcade came up, and it's an event in Austin. They call it Juegos Rancheros now, or Games Y'all, I forget. They changed the name, but it's basically a little like community of indie game devs in Austin. So I'm about an hour and a half away from Austin. And they were doing this thing called Fantastic Arcade, where they were going to rent out space at an Alamo Draft House and like have an arcade space of people's games. I was like, yeah, I'll try it. It's free to submit. And I did. And I got a call back, and Faith featured at this event called Fantastic Arcade in 2018. I brought Torpilduke with me. I brought my wife with me. I kind of wanted to be like, see, like, this is a thing. Like, this is a thing that I'm doing. 'Cause she doesn't play video games. So it wasn't hard to convince her. It's just that I had to kind of explain a lot of stuff. Like, and why I was suddenly able to afford a really nice date night, like, every week, which was a positive thing, but so I was like, I wanted to take my mom and be like, see, this is like a legit thing that I'm doing.
Mom, I have a real job.
Well, I had a day job then, but so Faith was, and Airdorf was definitely like on the side, back then. So yeah, I spent the weekend in Austin, and it was really fun. I did like a talk in the big theater room. The guys from Vlambeer were there. I didn't know that. And afterwards, I got followed by them, or messaged by them on Twitter, complimenting me. And I was like, holy cow, you guys are like my heroes. And afterwards, the organizer, maybe about, I don't know, maybe it was like a month or 2 months later, I got contacted by the organizer of the event.
Wow.
And he said, hey, I just got contacted by a film company. They're looking for someone who could make a short horror game in the style of the Oregon Trail for their upcoming film. And I thought of you, because you're kind of the only person who's doing that.
Yeah.
I was like, that's true. That is what I do. So I got contacted by IFC Midnight. So they did the Babadook, Human Centipede, Autopsy of Jane Doe. And they said, hey, we got this new film called The Wind. It's like a horror game set out on the prairie, like in the Old West. And we'd like for you to make like a short web-based game for people to play in line at a festival while they're waiting for the screening.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that sounds good. So we talked about budget and stuff and got that tacked down. I was like, okay, what's the turnaround for this? And I was like, oh, we need it in 2 weeks.
Oh no.
So I was like, cowabunga it is then, So I like, what's crazy is that right when they wanted it, like the delivery date for it was during GDC, and I had been invited to give a talk there. So not only did I have to work on this game, but I have to prep for like my talk and like going to San Francisco. So I basically, for like a week, I like locked myself in my office, was like, see you later, honey. Like,
yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Slide my meals under the door, please. And it was rough going, but I actually had to get it done in 10 days because they had to approve it. And then we had to get builds out, and then they had to put it on the laptop and test it. And also, I was going to be in San Francisco, like traveling. So at GDC, like in San Francisco, I was walking around the convention center, going to talks and like working on my own talk and stuff. And at night, I would run to my Airbnb and sit at my laptop and like work on the game
Oh,
till like
jeez.
2 a.m. So it was crazy. It paid really well, but most importantly, doing Faith. So doing Faith and then submitting it to Fantastic Arcade got the organizer talking to me, referring me to the film company. After I did The Wind, a film director who talked to the director of the Wind movie was talking about doing a game, and they referred me to them. So that's how Extraordinary happened. And then after Extraordinary, some filmmakers who did Attack of the Murder Hornets documentary on Discovery Plus contacted me because they saw Extraordinary. And then because of my reputation making these games, IFC Midnight, under different leadership in their like creative team, they contacted me again to make Hatching. So like I've learned to take advantage of opportunities as they come up, and to like be open to stuff, because if I hadn't gotten into Fantastic Arcade, or if the organizer hadn't contacted me, or if I had turned it down, be like, no, that's crazy, no one could do a game in 2 weeks, If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had all those other opportunities. And so
Right.
I consider myself very lucky and blessed that like it happened that way, because I got a ton of experience working on some very short turnaround games, but games that were a real challenge to make, especially Extraordinary, because it's like a comedy with horror elements, so the gameplay had to kind of be tailored to that. But I'm really pleased with all of them. And then I got contacted by DreadX shortly after making Extraordinary, I think. Or no, after Earl's Day Off. And that was the reason, Earl's Day Off is the reason why DreadX got a hold of me and asked if I wanted to do this crazy thing, this paid game jam that became the first DreadX collection.
Yeah. And your
So
game in there was also very,
Summer
very well
Night?
received. Yes, it was very cool.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it, because that is like, besides Faith, I think I'm the most proud of Summer Night. Like, and that was also like a 10-day turnaround.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was like
The pace
actually
for that.
the jam
Yeah.
was the whole point. But
The pace of that was pretty breakneck, but I'm really happy with how it came out. I'm very proud of it. I especially like the twist at the end and like what I did with the audio. It just came together really well.
yeah.
And again, I consider myself very lucky that, my talent, my creative energy just kind of came together for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's very
So it's been a wild
apparent.
ride.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I'm super happy for you. I'm glad that the journey has been working out for you so far, and I'm super excited to see everything that you come up with in the future, because I'm sure you've got, like you said, plenty on the burner ready.
Yeah. What's exciting is that I am now, through Airdorf Games, like through the LLC and stuff, I'm starting to have enough capital to where I can start hiring like interns and
Yeah.
like junior artists and stuff to help out. And that is something that I would have appreciated when I was like a student trying to find work,
Yeah.
And so I'm like, the term give back to the community is kind of cliche, but that really is how I feel. Like, I empathize, and I came from looking for gigs, looking for freelance gigs and looking for studios that weren't going to shut down because the CEO did something illegal, which actually happened to me.
Oh,
And-
no.
Yeah, so I worked at a games for education company. Torpil and I both worked there, and he was a game designer and I was a technical animator / sort of game designer. Him and I worked on a pre-production prototype for this platformer game that was like set in the Andes Mountains and had a bunch of South American culture.
Interesting.
Because I lived in South America for a tiny bit in
I
a
read that on your
in a
wiki.
previous life.
Yeah.
And so we were working on that, but then around time we were just getting going, they like, this company lost like 80% of its budget to pay contractors. And so me being an animator, it's different from being an engineer,
Yeah.
or a QA tester or a designer, So they dropped me pretty quickly. And I later found out that the CEO of the company like embezzled money from the state that he was doing these projects in. It was supposed to go to like an online charter school, if I remember correctly, but he instead used it to fund other things. So it was like sort of money laundering. Like,
Oh, no.
yeah. So he got busted, and so it was like, bye-bye. And when I got laid off and I told my wife, we were like, is this going to be our lives now? It's just like you trying to find work at these studios that just treat you like crap,
Yeah.
And there's studios that don't, there's studios that treat their workers really well, but I
Sure.
had a very different experience. And it was around that time when I started kind of thinking, if no one's giving me a chance the way I want, maybe I need to start making my own chance for myself,
Yeah.
So I started making my own opportunities and just trying to be positive and open to opportunities and stuff where I found them. And I learned a lot from kind of hustling and having positive energy and networking and stuff. And so I am really excited that, fairly soon I will have the budget to hire people and hopefully not repeat the same mistakes that I experienced when I was working
maybe
freelance.
Don't launder money, like, is my suggestion as a professional. Like, don't launder money.
Yeah, I guess.
But up to you.
That'll be a plan B, I guess. I'll move it to plan B.
Good
You never
idea.
know. I do like a good embezzling, a good embezzle.
Everyone does, truly. That's great.
They don't call me Embezzle Knees or Scrooge for nothing.
Okay. All right. Okay. We got jokes all over
nickname.
here.
That's been my nickname for as long as I can remember. Just kidding.
Wow. Way back in high school, they were like, this.
I was a 4-year-old and they were calling me Embezzle Knees or Scrooge.
And they were like, we don't know why we call him that. But it just felt right. He just came out the womb and we were like, that's it. That's the name.
Yeah, super exciting ride. It's been, I haven't had a bad year yet because I've only been in business for a year. So
we're on track.
Yeah. So 100% perfect record, not to brag. Take notes, Activision Blizzard.
Yeah. No kidding.
And so anyway, it's been a crazy ride. I've learned so much and I feel like I've grown as a person, and I would love to give the opportunities that I wish, that I had to fight for and make myself to people who are looking for them, So I'm always looking for new talent and kind of networking and getting to know new people and artists and stuff. I just met a kid that does he does digital music. He's a composer for games, but he is classically trained and he is a classical saxophone player.
Wow.
If you can believe that there is such a thing that exists.
Yeah.
So, he's probably one of the few people on the planet who can play Mozart on a saxophone, I guess. I don't know if you could describe it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep him in my back pocket for the future, because that's really unique. Mm-hmm. And it's stuff like that. I like to troll around conventions and conferences and find people, with unique creative visions that, hopefully I can throw some work at. But yeah, it's been crazy. I never thought I'd be a businessman or something. There's some days when I wish I could go back to my life before, when there was less pressure, but it's just really exciting that I can finally provide for my family and stuff like that and kind of invest in myself and my future and in other people using money that I make doing the thing that I love,
Yeah. Yeah. That is something that is rare, I feel like, in life. So the fact that you have found it is awesome.
So I still have a day job. That's the caveat. And I don't think I'm super massive successful, but
you still have a day job now?
Yeah.
Not doing game design.
Yeah, I do. I teach classes for computer animation,
Oh
game
my gosh,
design,
that's
game
so
development.
cool. So do your classes know who you are?
Some of them do, yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say, I feel like it would be very hard to not talk about, not teach class and use your own game as an example. Have you done that?
I use it as a bad example sometimes.
Do you really?
I've learned there's a lot of things I would have done differently with Faith that I just kind of mask over. I'm just kidding. I'm just being every now and then I'll do talks on networking and what publishing is and things like that, and I'll use Faith as an example. And when people start making the connection and they know who Airdorf and Faith is, I'll get a couple of in the audience and stuff. And
That's got to be the best mic drop of
the
all
audience.
time.
I mean, my students.
Yeah, I knew what you meant. I didn't even think about it.
I have a big performer personality. So
yeah, I can tell.
Every now and then, when I was in school, instead of semester, I would say season. So I was like, yeah, but back in season 1, we didn't have to take this class, but now we do.
I'm gonna start doing that instead of, because I work in corporate, so it's quarter 1, quarter 2. I'm gonna be really? So in season 1, when the budget was shit, that's great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's reflecting into my children too. I have 2 kids, and I have a little 3-year-old girl who's she's a real ham. She loves to be in the spotlight and be the center of attention and be performative and stuff. And my wife is frequently like, holy cow, you have like a mini clone of yourself following you around.
It happens.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, this has been so informative, so awesome. You have so many awesome things to say, and I really appreciate your time. Is there anything you would like to promote other than your games? Or, I mean, you can promote literally anything.
Yeah, I wrote an 85,000 word essay on Hegel, and if it's okay, I'd like to read it now in its entirety.
What is Hegel?
Hegel?
Yeah, what is that?
The German modernist like philosophers. Every annoying person with a philosophy degree mentions Hegel. So
Oh, I don't know enough annoying philosophy people.
I'm just kidding.
You can be the first.
I love you
though.
guys.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, you could definitely read it. I mean, anything else besides that you want to promote?
Yeah. Before I get started on that,
Yeah.
you can find me on social, I guess, at Airdorf. Please don't look for me on Discord, and please stop looking for me on Discord and Steam.
Yeah.
And I just reached 100,000 followers on Twitter, which like still hasn't registered in my brain. So I'd like to do something special soon. Maybe I'll do like an AMA. But yeah, keep on the lookout. Around the end of October is when I want to push the next Faith update. It's going to have a new mode. It's going to have new music tracks. It's going to have new rotoscoped cutscenes. It's going to have a new play mode that started out as something really small, but it's actually bigger than Chapter 1. So,
Ooh.
Yeah, I might have shot myself in the foot there as far as like my sanity for the next couple of weeks, but who needs it? And probably a new game demo dropping on itch probably around Halloween, and then stay tuned for another big project, assuming that goes through. So yeah, exciting things.
Awesome. I am super excited. Thank you again for your time. Much appreciated. And I will see y'all in the next one. Goodbye.
Remember, Gary loves you.